Speaking of Christmas, this next movie takes place in Utah, which doesn't have anything to do with Christmas, but it does for this movie, which is Silent Night, Deadly Night from 1984, which is a bit of a uh, probably a cult classic, in which a kid witnesses the murder of his parents, and he's sort of messed up. He goes to this orphanage, um, with his brother, and he just gets messed up more because, well, it's an orphanage, Catholic orphanage, and these like Catholic people are like, hey, punishment is good, and this messed up type of stuff. So this kid is really messed up. Then he starts working at like this toy store. I think he was 18 or so. And then like over the course, he sort of snaps as soon as he's like asked to, hey, you have to dress up as Santa Claus. And since he saw this Santa Claus guy kill his parents, every time he sees Santa Claus, it's like gets out of this bad feelings and stuff. So yeah, he snaps, he goes on a rampage, kills people, and things happen. So I mentioned this to Jackie before the show, and I just want to mention it now. I have seen this movie once before, but the circumstances in which I watched it, it was during in October when I was watching a bunch of movies, so I didn't necessarily remember a whole lot about this. So it's sort of interesting. I was actually pretty excited about coming back to see this one again, and I think it's a decently enjoyable movie. At times it feels like it's a bit, I don't know, shallow might be the right word, because like he kills a lot of the people he kills early on are the people he knows. So then like the rest is just like a random, like going to a house and these random characters are like killing these kids randomly out in the wards. So it doesn't really have a, I don't know, it doesn't really have a big,
that's just while he's on his way back to the orphanage.
yeah, which is fine. But I just wish he would have been able to kill that last one he was aiming for. So close.
Oh yeah.
And actually, I think the finale was pretty interesting, which I'm going to touch on in a bit later. But I think it's a pretty enjoyable movie. It's not like it's not like the first killer Santa Claus movie. I mean, there's like movies that predated it, such as God, what was it called? That movie from 1980 that I can't remember the name of. It will come to me. But it is probably one of the most memorable because I remember when this was released, there's a bunch of controversy surrounding it. So it's a pretty decent movie. It's not like it's like necessarily a fantastic movie, but it's pretty okay. So I'm sort of curious. When did you first see this one?
I don't know exactly what year. I first saw it when I was probably in my early 20s, which was about 15 years ago. And yeah, I actually enjoy this movie. I think it's one of my go-to Christmas movies. I don't have like a regular list of movies that I watch at Christmas, but this is a movie that would definitely be on it if I did have one. There's a lot to this movie that I actually do enjoy. The shallow aspect of it it's not a big deal. I mean, at the end of the day, slasher movies are people going around killing people. They're just random people that they don't know. So, and I think this one there's some depth to it. There's reasons. Well, I mean, it's interesting to see a guy who becomes this monstrous maniac just based on traumatic experience. Throughout the movie, they actually show that he's struggling to deal with these things that pop up. Having to deal with Christmas and the scenes where he kind of catches some people having sex, and because his mother was murdered by Santa while being raped. So yeah, there's a bit to it. I guess I just go from my points from the beginning of the movie through to the end, but I mean, I do enjoy that the movie just starts off straight away with the title. It's got this girl singing in the background, and then the music blares, and I think the music in the movie is actually quite unrelenting, which is pretty good. It adds to the dread of the film. By the way, there's like a crazy grandpa in this movie, and I'll just say, like, for crazy characters, people often bring up, I don't know, like Friday the 13th, you got Crazy Ralph, but to me, Crazy Grandpa's better. You better run for your life.
Yeah, it's funny because that's just so random. And at the same time, I sort of appreciated how the parents are like, "Why would our son lie about this?" And like, "Well, this old son of a bitch." Like, so I did find that amusing. I'm also sort of amused by the fact that the father's just sort of trolling the son, like, "Hey, I'm just going to pretend to cut hair, talk to you." Like, what a dick. Like,
Yeah, but there's I mean, I can kind of see why there were so many people offended at the time of the release of this movie. I mean, a lot of it's still to do with the fact that, you know, it's Christmas and it's meant to be, you know, you're portraying Santa, which is something that a lot of kids get excited about, and you're portraying him as this murderer. But I mean, there are times in this movie where it's just like, to me, I'm fine with it, but I can see how other people see it as unnecessary. Like, they go a bit far in certain scenes. Like, even just the opening death in the movie, which is, I think, the one where the store clerk gets shot. You know, he gets shot once, and then he kind of gets back up to shoot again, and the Santa shoots him again. Like, both in the torso or somewhere in that region. And it looks like, okay, the store clerk, you know, he's done. He looks dead. But then they go the extra mile and shoot him in the fucking head.
yeah.
It's like, you didn't really need to do that. I mean, I appreciate it, but I guess the person who isn't into horror movies and things like that, they're going to see that as a bit much. And you know, and then a couple minutes later, he's out there raping and killing more. And there's other kills in the movie where they probably do that too. But speaking of that, if you're not watching the unrated version of this movie, you're missing out on quite a bit of stuff. So I presumed you watched the unrated version.
Yeah, and the reason I'm pretty sure I did, because the camera quality changed between scenes, which, you know, I sort of enjoy that. It's like the My Bloody Valentine version that I'm most used to watching does the same thing, so some quality scenes there.
Yeah, I actually had that point in here referencing My Bloody Valentine. Yeah, it's definitely like that. It's just one of those movies that's just completely so much better if you get to see all the extra parts that were cut out. I think the other interesting aspect to this movie is just the orphanage and how he's raised there. You know, you got this Mother Superior character who's got this method. She talks about how punishment's necessary and all this kind of stuff, and she really, you know, the kid already got told by the grandpa and whoever else that, you know, Santa punishes naughty kids, and you know, he comes after you, and then she's talking about punishment. You know, it just all kind of builds and builds till, yeah, he does punish.
Yeah, it's funny because what those kids probably needed, Billy and his brother needed, well, I guess the brother was baby at the time, but what Billy needed more than anything was probably therapy. And that's probably what a lot of these kids, after being raised in this type of, you know, environment, like, obviously there's nothing wrong with being in an orphanage, but like, I'm always sort of hesitant about religious institutions like this, because I mean, there's the way, and I know this is a movie and it's probably more extreme, but the whole way, like, just tying that kid down to the bed, just like, I mean, come on, there has to be some type of limitation.
Yeah, so just speaking about that scene, I couldn't stop thinking about when he gets tied to the bed and, you know, they just leave him there to sleep like that. I couldn't stop thinking about how he's just gonna piss and shit all throughout those sheets.
Yeah, and he'll probably be blamed for that too.
Yeah.
And the scene that really, I wouldn't say got to me, but it just furthered my annoyance. It's like when one of the nicer sisters like says, "Hey, you should come out and play," and you know, she sort of coaxes him out, and he goes outside, and then the Mother Superior, you know, after something else happens, sort of like finds him, like, then punishes him for leaving the room. I'm like, oh, come on, like, have some type of decency. But I mean, being raised Catholic myself, I can say that Catholics have no decency, so it's okay.
That little kid packs one hell of a punch, by the way.
Yeah, that scene was probably my top 5 favorite scenes. And actually, that brings up to another point. and before I make this point, I just want to quickly say, the movie I was trying to reference earlier was To All a Good Night from 1980. And there's also Christmas Evil from 1980, both of which had killer Santa Clauses.
But they didn't have hairy butt cheeks.
Well, that may be true. So there's actually two things I wanted to mention. One, this is an absolutely ridiculous scene in this movie, and I think if you've seen the movie, we all know the scene. But it's barely after he gets his job, just like just walking around this toy store, like doing all these nice things. Like he punches out the time clock, but then he straightens out straightens out something that's crooked, and you just see his manager behind him smiling and nodding his head, like to this cheesy song in the background. There's the funniest 2.5 minutes I've ever seen in my life. It's just glorious.
Speaking of this, I don't know how long ago it was. Probably well over 10 years ago. When I was kind of first using YouTube, I uploaded some of these Mentos commercials, and like for anyone who grew up back in the, I don't know exactly when it was, late 80s, early 90s, but they always had these commercials on TV, and they'd have this stupid Mentos song playing in the background. They get into this like annoying situation. They eat one of these Mentos candies or whatever, and then suddenly everything's all good, or and anyways, I did one for Silent Night, Deadly Night, and it is actually on our YouTube channel, but it's like really old. It's like recorded with a potato, 120p or whatever. I don't know, but what I plan to do is remake that commercial, because I think it's the funniest one out of the ones I've done. It's mainly because it's so simple, and just a little nodding at the end when he straightens up the little book on the stand. For anyone who's familiar with those commercials, it was. I felt it was beautiful, and in fact, I'm gonna remake it, and I'm gonna attach it to this review. So stay till the end, and you'll get to see it.
Yeah. So that scene. I know it's an often talked about little montage, but that scene just really cracked me up. I had a fantastic time with that. I even, like, after I saw the movie again, I posted that scene on my Facebook. Like, that's a fantastic scene. And this is a smaller thing, but once so like Billy catches these two co-workers
fucking.
Yeah, one of the guys, it seems to me, and maybe it's I don't know, it seems to me he's raping the woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly can't tell if it's like just sexual assault or, I mean, it's obviously attempted rape, but I'm not sure if he's actually raping her. So then Bailey, he has this sort of funny thing which says naughty and then attacks somebody, and he does it through it, and it's pretty funny. But to be honest, I at that time I didn't know if he was going to be going after the guy or the girl, mainly because I thought he might connect any sexual thing negatively, so I thought he could have gone after either one. But he goes after the guy and sort of, in my opinion, saves her. And then,
yeah.
I mean, I get, like, oh my god, you just murdered this guy, you're crazy, but at the same time...
Could have thanked him.
Yeah, the guy was attempting to rape her, so, I mean, some type of perspective might have been nice. I mean, I know, that's just me.
Yeah, I had that exact same point down too, about how he really does save her from being raped. We understand, you just killed the guy, but it's not like you cut his head off or anything. You were just kind of like choking him, but and choked him a little too much. But
yeah, I mean, there's some situations in which you have to protect. I mean, he wants to protect himself. He's protecting somebody else. But even so, like, I feel like in, like, just say a lot of Joey cases, I feel like a lot of Joeys would look at it and say, well, I think he wasn't doing like necessarily the right thing, but you can't really blame him for what he did. And then of course he goes a bit overboard with his next actions. Speaking of which, the whole sequence in the toy store is pretty fun throughout, mainly because I really like the I don't know what the actor's name is, but the guy who owns the store, he's like drunken.
Let's get shit faced.
Yeah, that scene. I mean, that's probably the nicest boss I've ever seen. By the way, I mean, like, if I had a boss like that, I would actually enjoy work. But So that whole scene, like the after hours party, that was so fun. So I mean, this movie has a lot of fun in it, and I really enjoyed seeing it again. It's not perfect, and actually, one more thing, I thought it was really interesting the finale at the orphanage. Like you would expect, I mean, it's a horror movie. You would expect it to take place at night or something, but it's just like in the middle of the day, which I think it felt, I would say, more real. But it did have a little different feel to it than you might see in most movies. So I really appreciated that.
Hmm. Yeah, the pacing to this movie is pretty good. The kills just keep on coming. Really, I mean, outside of maybe a little bit of a build up to him becoming this maniac. I mean, it's from a slasher aspect of just seeing some cool kills and all that. It's just every however many minutes go by, you get another kill, and I don't know. I think it works pretty well.
Yeah, and this is a scene in which, like you mentioned, he catches these two people having sex on like a pool table, or trying to.
Two balls in the corner pocket. Yeah.
Yeah. So I noticed her name was in the credits, but I didn't know who she played. But the girl in that scene was Lena Quigley. We've spoken a few times about her in the past, and she never really makes an impression on me. She's like a fine actress, I guess, but I never really knew I liked her until I actually saw this movie. I mean, she could open the door topless to me anytime.
She's too skinny for me. I'm not a fan of so skinny. You can see the bones in their body, and I don't know. Too skinny for me.
Yeah, to each their own. I'll just keep it for myself. But
yeah, you can have her. You can.
Oh, and I feel like a lot of those kids at the end of the movie might need therapy, and they're probably not going to get it from the orphanage. So I feel bad for all of them. Although and I saw it coming, just the way they're sort of building up to it. But the final scene was just that cracked me up. The little brother's reaction. And I think I've not seen any of the sequels, but I'm guessing the second movie sort of continues or tries to play after that. So
the second movie is actually, it's like half new scenes and half scenes from the original. It's like it's like the. I think the main character is like the other brother. Just one other thing I was gonna mention is just because earlier I was talking about how there's a certain level of dread to this movie, and towards the end there's a Santa that gets shot. They think is the killer, but isn't the killer because he's visiting the orphanage, and I think they said it's Father O'Brien or something like that, but they have to add that extra level. Oh, he's deaf. He wouldn't have heard you to stop. So poor guy just gets blasted because he's deaf.
I also love the generic Catholic priest, Father O'Brien, because of course he's Irish. Yeah. So I mean, and that guy was probably a pretty nice guy. I mean, he's a deaf guy who's coming over to be Santa Claus for orphans. So, and I do sort of think it's funny. I didn't like the Mother Superior character, but I sort of like her going after the cop. Not that I necessarily agree with her, but I don't like I don't like Mother Superior, but at least she, in her own way, cares about the kid's safety. So I appreciated that. I still wish she would have died though.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just one thing I wish we got to see. But anyways, well, I mean they've gone so far already with all this extra violence. I mean, why not just axe a old handicapped nun? So,
yeah,
you might as well.
that would give them the people something to really be unhappy about. Yeah, so it's a pretty good movie. I was really happy to see it again. And there's a lot of great kills. I personally like the one this person gets decapitated while sliding. We don't actually see the decapitation, but we see the heartless body, and then the heart come flying down.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's also a scene where this woman gets sort of pushed onto some antlers, and that's pretty good too. And can't go without saying I love the archery scene. I mean, it's pretty simple, just this person gets shot with an arrow, but hey, I liked it.
You love your archery deaths in movies.
I just wish there's more of a focus and more movies on them. Because when they're done well, they can be pretty cool. Admittedly, there's only so much you can do with a bow and arrow. But so variety is the spice of life, as they say. So this movie is pretty good. I had a pretty good time with it. It's not an amazing movie, but it is a movie I was really happy to see again. And I can definitely see this being like sort of like a top 10 Christmas horror movie. So I'm giving this one right now, and this may change. It's sort of like a rating on the fly, but I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm giving the exact same score, 8 out of 10. I enjoy watching this movie. You know, it's not something I could watch on a yearly basis, but I mean, I could, but I don't intend to. Well, I mean, Christmas makes it a bit easier to, hey, just put on Christmas horror movies, so I guess, you know, you kind of have a reason if you want to, but yeah, I still enjoy watching this movie. I think it's got a certain level of dread, as I've been saying, to the film that I think a lot of other movies don't quite have as much as this one, and I mean, at least comparing to other slasher movies. But you know, all the people that were offended by this movie, it just makes you kind of want to love it just that little bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, there's even a nice little touching moment in the movie where he gives a knife to a little girl and smiles about it. So
I sort of wish he had some type of actual gift for her, but you know, I get it. He just can't see anybody as innocent.
yeah, I mean, he did work at a toy store. Maybe have like a Barbie doll in his pocket or something.